You're listening to the Two Tongues Podcast. And now your hosts, Kyle and Chris.
Welcome back, one and all, to another episode of the Two Tongues Podcast, where I'm doing my damnedest to not say so much.
Yeah, it's difficult.
So when I go back and listen to myself record, especially my solo episodes where I'm thinking on the fly,
Just umming it up.
I'm just umming it up too much, and then I see other people who don't do it, and I'm just impressed. Yeah, I'm like, how does he do it?
Yeah, I know, man. I don't put in the amount of practice that you do. There we go. So it really is impressive when you watch somebody who can just like rattle it off and very rarely have any of that kind of filler.
Totally. I also think English people and Australian people they have other things that they say instead of and it's maybe not as obvious or glaring or something like or something. I don't know. They do something else.
Yeah. They go, oi.
Oi.
They do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of British people.
Yeah.
I watched that video you sent me.
Oh, what was the guy's name?
The
guy
being interviewed.
Yes.
Steve Laws.
Steve Laws. Yeah. Keep going.
He's apparently the most racist man in England.
Yeah. Weird that I never heard of him until that.
Yeah, me neither.
So that pops up on my feed, and I just saw like it was probably like 15, 20 seconds where the Steve Laws with an S, is it with an S?
Laws, yeah.
Where Steve Laws is getting interviewed by Andrew Gold, who, again, I don't know who he is either. I've seen him before. I have no idea who he is.
I'd never seen him until you sent that video. Andrew Gold.
Yeah.
And Gold.
The clip is
an asterisk.
Yeah.
Asterisk.
Yeah, exactly.
How the fuck you say that?
The clip I saw was Steve Laws saying he wants England maintained for the English.
Yeah.
And that England belongs to the English. And then he also said to Mr. Gold, without it's not personal, but I see you as foreign.
Yeah.
And he was like, but we've been here for 3 generations, and whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the little clip I saw, and I ended up listening to the whole thing.
I think I still had like 10 minutes when I quit, when I tapped out, but I listened to most of it, and I sent a text to you, and I said that guy Steve Laws, he kind of threw a little bit of shade at Nick Fuentes in that interview.
He did,
and Nick Fuentes fans. Followers, supporters, groypers, whatever the fuck you want to call them. And I thought that was interesting. But I just think that guy is like a less impressive version of Nick Fuentes,
Yeah. I was trying to see how I would find that video, but it's going to take me too long to figure out how X works on the spot.
Jamie.
Yeah, we need a Jamie big time.
If you want to be our Jamie, get in the comments.
Send us DM us on Twitter,
or
send us an email to twotongspodcast
You're gonna have to
gmail.com.
If you DM anyone on Twitter, it's gonna have to be Chris, because I'm on Twitter, but it's surreptitiously.
Yeah.
If you can find me, by all means.
So obviously you've been in the know about Nick Fuentes and people of his ilk, if you will, for a long time, and I just never really gave it much attention until he started popping up on the mainstream, and he's
in
like
the last few months.
Yeah. He's like showing up on Piers Morgan, and I'm like, oh man, Tucker Carlson.
So that interview, I actually felt like there was a little bit of an element of like some kind of bizarro Nick Fuentes Piers Morgan interview, where like in the Piers Morgan Nick Fuentes interview, I felt like Nick was very effective and Piers came off as very out of touch.
Mm-hmm.
And it was you can tell that Piers was kind of blown away by the reception. Like he thought he got Nick Fuentes, and then like literally every comment is just brutal, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like it was like a little bit of a bizarro version of that, where because this Steve Laws guy is not as convincing, as compelling as Nick Fuentes, he didn't do as well. And I feel like Andrew?
I think so, yeah.
Goldstein came off a little bit a little bit better than peers, but honestly, I think he still came off as very out of touch. He kept saying things like, well, mate, it's never gonna, no one's gonna be on your side, no one's gonna be on your, ain't nobody on your side, mate. And I just don't agree with that. Like I looked at the comments overwhelmingly on Steve Law's side.
Yeah.
And now he can be like, oh, even in the beginning of that podcast, he was like, even if you don't normally comment, especially if you don't normally comment, mate, it's like he wanted that representation, but he just got fucking crushed, not necessarily in the interview. Like I said, I don't think that Steve Law's guy represented his case particularly well, but I just think that he's completely out of touch with what people want, what people are going to be okay with, especially if things keep going the way that they're going. He said that people are never going to want to deport people who are born here. Well, I can tell you, here in America, I would be happy to deport some people who are born here. Very happy.
Yeah, I mean, the area that sticks out to me is like right picking for that is this whole argument, this whole conversation right now about birthright citizenship. So this is just low hanging fruit, but where I can agree with you, like without a whole lot of argument, is if somebody comes here illegally, maybe even pregnant and with the intention of having a kid here so that their kid can become a citizen. If you say to me, look at this crisis that we're in, this refugee crisis, this housing crisis, this, the economic conditions that we're in that are made far worse by all these people who aren't supposed to be here, who are here, and they're coming here and having children just so that they're United States citizens. And you ask me, do I think that person should be deported? Absolutely. That is the most unfair shit I've ever heard in my life.
Yep.
So this whole birthright citizenship thing, I think, is something that needs to happen. This is not 1804 anymore.
I mean, I don't particularly care if that person is 25 and was born here. It's like if you came here, if your parents came here, and you've been here for 25 years, if you're illegal, you're going.
Yep.
If they were illegal when they came here, you're gone.
Yep.
And I don't particularly feel a whole lot of, I was going to say I don't feel any sympathy for them, but I kind of do. Like, I do, like, I do feel for you a little bit. Like, yeah, this is the only places you've ever known. But it doesn't make me feel bad enough to let you stay.
Yeah.
You got to fucking go.
You got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like in that situation, I think if a woman comes over here illegally, pregnant woman comes over here illegally, and she's caught, she should be deported. She's here legally. There's not a single moment of hesitation in my mind. You broke the law to get here, dude. You're out.
Yep.
And then these bleeding hearts want me to feel bad about this baby, who, by the way, is a citizen, just as American as you, because he was born here.
What a crock of shit.
Nope. You just cheated. You slithered your way around the rules, and now you expect me to have sympathy for that? I don't.
In that system, being American means nothing. It means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. A lot of these people would say that. A lot of these people who think that these anchor babies can fucking stay, they would straight up say, being American doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Fuck you. We should deport them. Like, if you're an American citizen and you're saying being American means nothing, we need to open up the borders and you should go.
Yeah.
You're gone.
If it means nothing,
if it was up to me, you would be gone.
If it means nothing, let's send you to Venezuela, and we'll see if being Venezuelan means nothing.
That might be an option.
Might be an option.
Point. Due to recent events, but we won't get ahead of ourselves here.
Do you want to show any of this Andrew Gold interview? I'm trying to find a clip, and unfortunately, I'm getting the whole. This one is the whole.
Yeah, thing. That's the whole one. Yeah, 9 minutes.
And this one's just about re-immigration. Let's see. It makes me watch. Okay, hold on. Oh, let me share it. I can figure out how to share it, Kyle.
Just got to go to the right tab, bro.
Share. I wonder if I don't have to do that. I don't think. Okay. This one, right? No. Yeah, this one. Right? No, this one. Yeah. All right, let's see it.
I put my people first. I'm a nationalist. and I love my people, and I want to protect their future. So if that makes me racist, so be it. I wear it proudly.
In that sense, you're probably the most prominent racist in the country, the biggest racist in the UK.
Well, nationalist is the term I would use. I wouldn't introduce myself as racist, but yes, I would argue that probably one of the largest nationalist accounts in the UK, not civic nationalist, but real nationalist.
Okay, so that's something.
That's actually something I do want to talk about, the difference between civic nationalism and what is the other one? Ethnic?
Yeah.
Let's let it play a little longer.
That we'll have to explain, because a lot of the audience will know what all of that means, but a lot won't be in with, you know, the ins and outs. There's kind of a civil war almost on the right. I don't even know if it's a civil war going on between, what is it? You can explain civil nationalism and ethno-nationalism. What are these terms?
So ethno-nationalism is nationalism. There is only one form of nationalism. Civic nationalism is some absurd mixed direction that's been taken away. It's realistically, civic nationalists are liberals that do not like Islam. And that's pretty much their position. A lot of civic nationalists think that anyone can be British. They think that you come over, you're born here, you're British. That's their position, and they think that's okay. Whereas a nationalist, my position is that England belongs to the English. This is our land, and we should protect our future. Our people are on the verge of becoming a demographic minority in our own homeland. That's unacceptable, and my line is total remigration.
So civic, I suppose, is about the country. That's what it means. It's like it's a nationalism that just is and of itself. It's just nationalism. And then you're saying it's just nationalism, but then those who are like me would say yours is ethno-nationalism because it is dependent on one's ethnicity.
But that is nationalism. It's based on a nation state which is built upon ethnicities.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So on that side, yes, basically to simplify, the civic nationalist approach is about values, whereas ours is about ethnicity and people, and our blood and our people.
What is an ethnicity exactly? It's not quite a race or a culture, is it?
No, it's sort of in between. So an ethnic group are a distinct group of people that have been formed over a various amount of time. So the English are a distinct ethnic group, the Scottish are a distinct ethnic group, the Welsh are a distinct ethnic group.
I know they're going to go into this whole, he's going to push back on him about hybrids and how much DNA do you have to have, how much Anglo DNA do you have to have, and that's all an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's not very compelling to me. Like, one of the things that he said was that in 1066, William the Conqueror came over from Normandy, and he was like, no, they're English now, but were they English back then? How the fuck do you think that the English people who lived in England in 1066 felt about them? That's important to take into consideration. Yes, they've been here for so fucking long that they are English at this point. But does that mean that does that mean that Steve Laws has to let the Pakistanis stay in England for, how long has it been? Almost 1,000 years. 1,000 years from now, will the Pakistanis be English?
It's a good question.
I'll tell you this. No, they won't be. They might be some closer approximation to English, but they will not be as English as the Normans are.
True. And
there's so much more in common between a Norman French person and a British person. It's pretty fucking close.
What it means to be English, if the percentage of what do they call Middle Eastern people, and they call them Asians. What do they call them over there? Asians, what do they call them?
Yeah, Asians.
They don't call them Middle Eastern or Arab. They call them Asians or something. So if there's as high a percentage of Asians in the population there in 1,000 years as there is today, what it means to be English will be different in 1,000 years.
Yeah.
That's not to say what it is to me English in the absence of those people would evolve and still be different. So it's a nuanced sort of thing, but if the English people are allowed to develop their culture on their own natively, the outcome of that, even if it's different from what it is today, will be a very different thing than if it's participated in by the Asians that are now overwhelming the local populations in many places, especially in the cities.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just the whole thing. Towards the end of this guy Goldstein even says something to the effect of, unfortunately, it seems like white people are eventually going to go extinct, and there's just nothing that we can do about that. Well, yeah, with that kind of an attitude, you're absolutely right, Goldstein. There is nothing that we could do about it. But that's why I'm on that Steve Laws guy. So even if he's not as effective as Nick Fuentes, he'll get there. He said he's only been doing this for a little while. He'll get better.
Yeah.
And maybe someone else will take up the torch. I don't really like, and a lot of people in America do this too, where they like kind of talk shit about Nick Fuentes. And there are things about Nick Fuentes that aren't perfect. You know, I guess if I was like creating my perfect, nationalist leader in a lab or something, it wouldn't be exactly Nick Fuentes, I guess, but it really annoys me when a lot of people that I like Nick Fuentes, and I like a lot of other people like Corey Mahler. Corey Mahler does not like Nick Fuentes. And I just don't understand who else is there. No one else is doing anything especially on the level that Nick Fuentes is doing it. Like, you can have disagreements, but this like throwing the baby out with the bathwater thing, it just really annoys me.
I don't know who Corey Mahler is.
Corey
Mahler. Yeah.
Mahler. Yeah. Like the composer.
Mahler.
Mahler.
M-A-H-L-E-R. Mahler. Got it.
Yeah.
I don't know who he is.
Yeah. I mean, he's just
he's a Fuentes type.
He would take umbrage with calling him that. He hosts a podcast with called Stone. Well, he used to host a podcast called Stone Choir. They ended it.
Okay.
He's a Lutheran Christian. He's a Christian nationalist. I think he's one of those kind of guys who would not really have a problem with you saying that he was racist, which I appreciate about him. But yeah, him and Nick don't. I honestly, Nick, I don't think has ever said anything about Corey Mahler. But Corey, he makes it pretty clear that he does not like Nick Fuentes. And I like both of them. And basically the way that I am is, if anybody tells me you have to pick between me and this other person, I'm picking the other person.
Yeah.
So
on principle.
Yeah. It's like, fuck you. I like you, but just fuck you.
Yeah.
But nobody's moving the needle like Nick is. Nobody in the entire world is moving the needle like Nick Fuentes is. So
I do think this Steve Laws guy is running along that same stream as Fuentes, doing it in the UK where I think it's needed more. Maybe if that's a fair statement, I think it is needed more there than it is here, even though it's badly needed here. Some pushback along those lines. There's a couple things that Fuentes said lately that I haven't had a chance to like hear more about what he has to say on, that I find to be kind of strange. He was debating some influencer, some internet personality named Sneeko. You probably know. I don't fucking need. Okay, let me just tell you my first impression of watching this stream with him debating Sneeko.
Yeah,
is that first of all, up until recently, I didn't know who the fuck Nick Fuentes was. I certainly don't know who the fuck Sneeko is. They're all children as far as I'm concerned, babies. And on the stream, you can see all the chat, scrolling across the top, and it's just like the babble of a bunch of children. It's like the kind of shit that I would have done on Twitter when I was 19.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, the audience is probably a bunch of 19-year-olds, but it's like silly and of no substance, and it's just people trying to get little zings in, and like, it was childish and ridiculous. And so,
can you think of like any kind of an example? What are you talking about?
Yeah, just like people, just people with, oh God. People with screen names that have the N-word in them,
Awesome.
People that are just throwing out, one-liners, that are, in this case, I'm trying to think of particular examples. The only ones that pop in my head immediately are a bunch of people just saying L and W after somebody says something that they like or they don't like. It's like win. Oh, loss. Well,
what's
like,
that bad?
Here's my opinion.
What's wrong with that?
It's just fucking. It's just of no substance. Why do I care if a bunch of people who are children are responding? I agree or disagree in that way. I if it were me, I would take that shit off of the stream. I don't even want to see it. But the impression I got, having seen it, is that the supporters of Fuentes are a bunch of children, and they're acting like children.
That's where my disconnect is a little bit, because I can understand, I guess, I don't really agree, but I can understand not caring what they have to say. But I don't understand why expressing that you agree with something means that you're a child. Like, I don't really get that.
Well, it's because, okay. Now I have to explain all of my thought process. So this stuff is scrolling across the screen quickly. Lots of people.
Oh yeah, tons.
There's lots of. So
absolutely.
it's like you barely have the time to read what someone said. You can't even register their screen name before it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's like I can't even hold on to your remark long enough to care or process it. And now we're on to the 50th person saying something. It's like we're not having a conversation. I don't have time to care about what you said, first of all. And there's too many other people's opinions here, all being smashed together, and half of them are just poking fun at each other and poking fun at the people talking. And it's just it makes me think. It reflects poorly on my ability to take Nick Fuentes seriously because of all of the people that are scrolling across the page who come across to me as like the way I think about this is when I was in high school. There was a certain, maybe it still exists, but it was novel at the time. There was a certain type of personality that existed among certain people, very, how would I put this? Sarcastic, unserious people who did that over the top. They didn't take anything seriously. They didn't express emotion at all. All of the jokes were sort of deadpan, dry, off the cuff remarks. These were people in the computer support technology program of my high school. These were like nerds that were like among the very first nerds that were cool for being nerds. And they had like their own subculture. And that's what this reminds me of. So I would get these flashbacks of these fucking kids that are nerds that are all of a sudden cool because they have a society of nerds that they can rise in the hierarchy of, and they're contributing nothing of substance. Everything is fucking stupid, man. Everything's gay. Everything is, and that's the impression I got by the stream of thousands of people watching this video with me. I can't fit in with this group. I don't belong to this group. So I'm trying to take this conversation seriously. And I'm sitting in a room full of a bunch of children a bunch of children that have been trained to communicate the way you communicate on Twitter.
So first of all, I don't understand why the way that other people are reacting and talking about a conversation colors your opinion about the conversation. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It's just a matter of, well, I'm trying to take this guy seriously, and all the people who take him seriously are those types of people. That's what I'm seeing. If that makes any sense, it's like the crowd that I'm in.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't understand why that. I don't really understand why the way other people react to something affects. It has no bearing on what is being said.
Yeah, but it would be like if you went to a political rally of somebody who you really liked, and everybody you met was a fucking schmuck, and you're like, I am among schmucks. This guy that I like is full of schmucks. That's how I felt. I don't know how else to put it. You're right that it doesn't necessarily color the substance of what was being said, but I still felt that way about it.
Yeah, I think that's something you probably have to try to get over on some level.
Yeah. Does that make me an elitist? I don't know, man. I'm an old man.
I don't know if it makes you an elitist, but I think also you said that all of these people, first of all, you're right. All you have time for is WL, gay,
Yeah, exactly.
because it moves. Like Nick has tons of viewers, and the live chat, Nick doesn't even, if you want to get Nick's attention, you have to pay.
Yeah.
You have to pay to send a super chat, and then maybe he'll read it online. I think it's like a dollar amount too. Like it has to be like at least $20 to get on the show.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, if you ever watch Nick Fuentes, it's hilarious. Nick very clearly hates his audience. Like my favorite part of the show, I like listening to his political insights, but when he gets to the super chats, it's so funny, man, because he fucking hates his fans. And I understand why. Like, I agree with you to some extent. A lot of them are stupid. A lot of them are just not serious on some level. And a lot of the times, even the ones who write in, and these are honestly my favorite ones, they'll write in and they try to say something serious, and Nick's just like, are you fucking kidding me? Just like, I love them. But you said that they say that everything is like gay and stupid. Everything is kind of gay and stupid. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Piers Morgan is gay and stupid. Fox News is gay and stupid. Mark Levin is gay and stupid. You know, like I understand that that's like boiling it down to like some very like a very fast way of saying it, you know, like because you're in that public chat, you have to get it out quick. So that's that. I don't know. Those are like my main. Everything is gay and stupid, and you have to say it fast. And also, just because the people who are saying it aren't saying it in a way that you like, doesn't that it shouldn't have an effect on what Nick is saying.
I accept that. I accept some of the pushback you're giving me here. So I think, first of all, let me ask you: has any of the stuff scrolling down the chat ever like made a difference to you? Like,
it depends on when I watch Nick. I don't look at the public. If I'm listening to Nick, I'm generally listening to it at work, so I'm not even looking at the screen. So that public chat, I don't see it all. But I will say that in the Crucible chat, it moves pretty, especially as Andrew blew up more and more.
Yep.
The chat moved pretty fast, and there are a lot of very smart people in the Crucible chat. So I think that there's valuable stuff being said in group chats.
Dude, I've come around a lot on Andrew Wilson.
Yeah, because
he and I share a lot of the same opinions, or at least the ones that are new to me. Once I hear his arguments, I generally agree with them. I still don't love. I would still prefer a conversation than a debate. But to see Andrew Wilson on Piers Morgan doing what he does on the internet to important people, especially when I disagree with them, which is always the case on Piers Morgan, something about it just it makes me joyful. It's just like, you know, the sneering, the smoking the cigarettes, the not taking him seriously. And that's another thing. I think the one thing I'll agree with about what you said about the Fuentes chats and fans is that it is, as much as I criticize these people not being serious people, taking things too seriously is gay and stupid also. I mean, like people, and I'm guilty of this too sometimes, get like developed anxiety about shit that's going on in the world that we can do nothing about. And to some degree, taking things too seriously is stupid.
Yeah.
It's not doing you any good. And a lot of people make their whole identities based on that kind of thing. And that's stupid. So I agree with you on that.
Yep. And then there's also like the idea, particularly someone like Mark Levin, it's just like his entire frame is wrong, you know, and Piers Morgan for that matter. Like in that interview that they did, Piers Morgan was like basically trying to shame Nick Fuentes for being a virgin.
Yeah, I remember.
And it's like, dude, that's a big part of why I like Nick Fuentes. Not because he's a virgin, but because he has principles and he doesn't care that some fucking boomer retard is making fun of him for it. You know, it's like, he continued to do that afterwards. Like, on X afterwards, he'd be like, "You just need to get laid, mate."
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you're a fucking retard, dude. Just completely out of touch. These boomer retards have no idea what's coming. It's going to be epic.
See, I was thinking about that today in the sense of like all the indoctrination that's happened since the 1960s to today, and getting all these liberal people in high office in politics and in universities and in publishing and all over the place. How that was happening sort of little by little, and people weren't really paying attention to the impact it was going to have. And then 50 years later, suddenly, you know, judges are all fucking activists.
Yeah.
You know, every single publishing house and platform is completely one-sided. And I think there's something like that happening, or potentially happening, with the Nick Fuenteses of the world and their audiences. I see this army of young people who I just disparaged, and, you know, forgive me, I guess, for some of that. I'm just like a visceral reaction, and I'm just trying to be honest about it. But they're kind of potentially sleepers.
Yeah, 100%.
And everything's moving faster now. So it's not going to take 50 years, maybe. Like, what happens when there's, you know, groypers that are fucking appeals court judges? What happens when there are groypers? You know what I mean?
Yep. I mean, they're doing their best to purge that, to prevent that from happening, but it's not going to be effective. I mean, that's one thing that Nick says all the time, is like, he said, the phrase is hide your power level. You know, don't go to work, you know, don't get a job at a think tank and then go in and be like, gay, faggot, like hide your power. Don't show the people what you really are. Get a position of power first and then actually do something, you know? So I think it is going to happen faster, but that's another thing with, like these people could be very serious. I mean, a lot of them are just clearly retards on the internet. That's undoubtedly true.
Yeah.
But there are also people who could be typing the W gay, and then they go to their very serious job the next day, they don't, it's not one or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just how people talk online nowadays. Not everything online is going to be a debate, or a conversation, like a serious high level conversation. Sometimes someone says something stupid and you say you're gay, and that's all it takes, really.
Yeah.
Everyone gets it. Everyone understands what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, I don't even think a lot of them deserve a whole lot more than that. Like, I think that, like, I don't know if you've seen a lot of the stuff that's been going on with Mark Levin and Dave Smith.
Tell me no.
Well, Dave Smith, Mark Levin is just, he's Israel first. And Dave Smith is, I don't want to say anti-Israel, but just for, expedience, we'll say anti-Israel. Dave Smith is not a huge fan of Israel. And, Mark Levin is just like, so my point is that if Dave Smith wants to have a debate with Mark Levin, which Mark Levin will never do, he will not do it. But if he did want to do it, that's fine. But I don't have any, Mark Levin is not going to deign to debate me. So for me, I'll say you're gay and everyone Mark Levin, he'll tweet something out and he'll be like, Dave Smith is a Nazi, blah, 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 stupid bullshit. He gets 200 likes and then 50,000 comments of you're gay, you're Jewish, it's pretty apparent. I don't need to write a dissertation about how I disagree with him.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's pretty apparent that he's losing. And it's the same thing with the ratios. He'll tweet something about Dave Smith and Dave Smith will quote tweet it. Mark Levin's tweet gets, like I said, 2,000 likes, something like that. Dave Smith gets 25,000 likes. So yeah, I don't have to debate Mark Levin. I just have to click the like button and say you're gay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Before we leave the topic of Fuentes, and we may not, because I want to get back to the Steve Walls guy, but
Yeah.
When I was listening to that debate or conversation with Sneeko, it was a Catholicism versus Islam conversation, and I've been really getting into those.
Yeah.
Even the Christianity versus Judaism conversations, I've been learning a tremendous amount from that perspective that I haven't really been exposed to before. It's been fascinating. But one thing that Nick said during that conversation was that his ideal form of government is a monarch. That what the United States needs is a king who is subordinate only to the Pope. And that was his ideal form of a theocracy, something that would still allow for a democratic process in terms of an oligarchy, in terms of some kind of a representative component to the government. Maybe something like they have in the UK, but where the king actually has the power.
Yeah. And
the Lords in the House of Lords and Commons are, they're writing the laws and stuff like that, but ultimately the king has all the power.
Yeah.
And my instinct, like any good indoctrinated American has been trained into me, is to say, whoa, hold on, wait a minute. We fought against having a king because we had, taxation without representation. And this, what was the line? Was it from, was it from The Patriot, where he's like something about trading 1,000 kings 1 mile, or one king 1,000 miles away for 1,000 kings 1 mile away? That was the objection to a representative system, getting away from the monarchy. What do you make of the idea of something like what Nick Fuentes suggested would be his ideal form of government?
I think it would be better than what we have now. I don't understand what the argument against that would be. What we have now is we have this democracy where people pretend that we aren't an oligarchy, but we very much are. We're like a crypto oligarchy.
Totally.
Whereas I feel like even a good old fashioned plain out oligarchy would be better, because then like you don't have a bunch of people running around thinking that they are, that they have more power than they actually do. And honestly, I think in some ways, even if you do have a leader who is not perfect, or even bad, I think that maybe it's still better than what we have now. I don't know.
So it occurs to me that like what Nick Fuentes has in mind is something like what Plato suggested in the Republic, about the philosopher king.
Mhm.
So he's like, the best form of government would be a philosopher king, and the idea is that you get if you have a perfect king, then you have all the advantages that come with having one leader. It's like one leader can act decisively and quickly, doesn't have to negotiate with anybody, doesn't have to water down the actions. They just do what they think is right. And if you have a philosopher king, he's always going to do the right thing, because he's going to have the interest of the people at heart.
Yeah.
He's going to be incorruptible. He's going to think through his actions.
It's a nice idea.
It's a nice idea. So I think having a king that's subordinate to the Pope, in his example, you have a higher authority that's keeping him moral, ensuring his, like, the only check on power is the pontiff. And if we had a perfect pontiff, then maybe that system is like Plato's philosopher king. But at the same time, here's what concerns me. And I do agree with you. I think that the Senate and the House are filled with blue blood oligarchs. They're all, even the AOCs, even the people who claim to be, even the Bernies, the people that claim to be coming from a working class situation, the J.D. Vances of the world, are all rich people with the ear of all the powerful people.
Yeah.
They're oligarchs.
I don't know that I would necessarily say that the people in the Senate and the Congress are oligarchs. I think that they are the tools of the actual oligarchs. Like Elon Musk is an oligarch.
Totally.
He's an oligarch that I like a lot of the stuff that he says.
Mm-hmm.
If all of the oligarchs were Elon, I'd be like, let's just go that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I get what you're saying, but I don't necessarily think that J.D. Vance is an oligarch. I think that Peter Thiel is more close to an oligarch.
I agree with you that there are definitely levels of the game, and I don't know. Like I think of somebody like Nancy Pelosi as an example, and it's hard for me to make a distinction between the kind of power she has and the kind of power Elon Musk has. Because I don't know. I don't know how much money Nancy Pelosi has at her disposal. And even if it's not about money, if it just boils down to influence, Elon Musk obviously has a huge amount of influence because of his money, but also because of his friends like Donald Trump. And Nancy Pelosi has a tremendous amount of influence because of all the people who she gives money to and who give her money, that are in it together, that are doing all kinds of shady things all the time. And if something's found out, the whole ship is going down.
Yeah.
So and it's international, right? Somebody like Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden, their power structure is international. Joe Biden has buddies in Ukraine, right? In Russia, everywhere, that kind of thing. So I don't know where the influence is greater. I don't know, but I just put them all in the category of oligarchs. And the point I want to make here is about, if you have a king, if you have one person involved, you only have to have one person become corrupt. When you have 400 congressmen, you have to have more. You have to have a lot more corrupt before things start to become a problem. Obviously, it become a problem. Like it didn't prevent, the kind of shit that we're dealing with now. We have a completely corrupt system, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But that's the argument I make. That's the pushback against it. It's like, if you have 20% of Congress that are in the pocket of whatever interest, then you still have 80% that are honest, that are pushing back. In reality, it's probably something way more bleak than that. It's probably 90%, I don't know, that are in the pocket of some interest.
Yeah. I mean, I see the logic behind that, but I also think that there's a couple of advantages if you have just one person who has to become corrupt. It's that if that person becomes corrupt, you know who to blame.
It's true.
There's really not a whole lot of area for the buck to get past.
Yeah. There's only one head that has to fall to remedy that situation. How do you remedy Congress being corrupt.
You think that you just vote yourself out of it. You think that,
Yeah,
I don't it's a shit show.
it is.
It's a giant swampy shit show. Also, I think that if you have, one leader who has like supreme power, I do think it's more difficult to corrupt that person. Like if you have a bunch of these little cogs in a machine, it's much easier to influence some of them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're the fucking boss, everything ends, the buck stops here on everything. I feel like it's a little bit more difficult to corrupt that. And I feel like that kind of happened in Russia when Putin came to power. It's like post-Soviet Union, Russia was a mess, and it was getting pillaged by a handful of oligarchs, a handful of billionaires. Probably a little bit more than a handful. But when Putin came to power, he said, I'm calling the shots. And if you have a problem with that, you can get the fuck out of Russia. And some of them did. Some of them left Russia.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, not to say that Putin's not corrupt. I don't think that Putin is like 100% on the up and up or anything. But I think that Putin is probably less corrupt than like Nancy Pelosi, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that Putin says what he means for the most part. Like he's a world leader. He's involved in the politics of a country. So you have to be surreptitious in some things. But nothing that American politicians say for the most part, I don't like really believe anything that they have to say, Whereas when Putin says what he means, I believe what he's saying. You know what I mean?
I can see that. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a value of it. But I mean, a lot of it just has to do with like the overarching, the ethos of the culture, who is going to come to power, things like that. So
do you think, I'm just in my head here, I'm just thinking about like, how could we eliminate the corruption? And the first thing that comes to my mind is a pie in the sky. But what do you think of this? What do you think about a future scenario where something like artificial intelligence is sophisticated enough to monitor the functioning of society and industry and make all the rules? Like, the legislative branch of the government is designed to write the laws. Might it be possible to replace Congress, who get bribed by special interests, whose bills get written by special interests, that kind of thing, to remove them all? No more senators, no more congressmen. We have AI. We have some AI that monitors the situation and writes the laws one bill at a time, whatever topic at a time, to address them. What do you think about that? Again, this is probably impossible to exist in reality, but a completely unbiased, mechanical sort of large language model sort of thing that does it all. And then you can't bribe it because it's a fucking machine, Kyle. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I just don't know like the limitations of the technology. You know what I mean? And like at the moment, if we put Grok in charge of the Senate,
yeah,
Elon Musk is in charge of the Senate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at some point, to avoid for that not to be true, we have to get to a point where AI is like, I guess, sentient. And that offers like a whole host of its own issues, because like what if the sentient AI just decides, well, we're just going to get rid of all the humans? Like, I mean, that's like
you still have the check on power that exists today. It's just so it's not that we still have a legislative branch. It's just AI now. It's not a person that can be corrupted. The check on power is still the executive. So if AI Congress decides to propose a new law, the president can still say, what the fuck is this? No, veto.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the executive has ultimate power. like over.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. But I mean, the way it works now is
because I'm okay with that. Like, you know, like I don't know.
Isn't it the case now that the president can only veto a bill a certain amount of times, and then if it still passes through, he has no choice but to
I think that is the case.
something like that, right? I didn't take civics.
I think it was 3 times.
Yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I took civics.
All right, back to the Steve Laws for a second, because he is very much like Nick Fuentes, and the conversation I really want to get to is about ethno-nationalism and civic nationalism. But anything before we get to that, anything that you can think about from that interview that's worth talking about, like for instance, when he said to Andrew Gold that you're foreign, and if I had the power. It's like, it's not personal, mate, but if I had the power, you would be gone. And he's like, where am I going to go? And he's like, to Israel. It's like, your people have a country. So if I were to deport you, I would deport you back to your country. What you're proposing is that things continue down this path until I don't have a country. And that's the part that I can't help but agree with. And Andrew Gold couldn't help but agree with. He kept pushing back, but he kept saying, I have sympathy for that. I have sympathy for the fact that, you know, it's a possibility that Anglo-Saxon British people are going to be a minority or gone completely, and that England, that their country that they created, will be gone. It'll be something else.
Yeah, he straight up accepted it. You know, towards the end, like I said, I think I quit when there was like 10 minutes left, but it was pretty close to the end there when he said, yeah, it seems like British people are going to go extinct eventually, and there's really nothing we can do about that. It's one of the things that Steve Laws kept saying to him is that it's like, yeah, you say that because you have this self-interest because you don't want to leave.
Exactly.
It's like, well, I don't want to leave either.
Yeah, and Andrew Gold said that too. He said, I don't want to go to Israel. It was like, I don't speak Hebrew. I've never, I haven't, what would I do? I've never been to that country. And Steve Laws' response to him was, you say that like it's the end of the world. Every Muslim refugee who comes to Great Britain has never been here before.
Yeah.
You're arguing that they should be able to stay, and yet you're claiming it would be a catastrophe if you had to go there. And by the way, Israel is one of the best countries in the world to live. It's a first world country.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I don't speak Hebrew. Like, everybody speaks Hebrew in fucking Israel. That's just like a stupid fucking argument. And I feel like Andrew Gold knows that's a stupid argument, to be honest with you. He doesn't seem like a stupid person. I don't know. The whole thing, like I said, that guy, Steve Laws, I feel like he needs to brush up a little bit, but I'm generally on his side for sure.
Yeah, I agreed. I think he's not as eloquent a speaker as Nick Fuentes, and he didn't have good comebacks for those, like, I would consider them off-topic points that Andrew Gold tried to press him on. There was a couple instances where he said something about Tommy Robinson.
Oh yeah.
And just because Nick Laws said that Tommy Robinson was rich.
Steve Laws.
What did I say?
Nick Laws.
We're
mixing up all the names.
You know what I mean, guys.
Yeah.
Steve Laws. He said that Tommy Robinson was rich and that he was receiving money from Israel or whatever it was, and he pressed him on it.
Yeah.
And then Andrew Gold kept going. He kept pressing him on it because he knew he
had something.
He had something.
Yeah, even though it was dumb, it was completely irrelevant.
Completely irrelevant. And then he made this statement like, "See, that's why I can't trust anything you have to say." Or he even said, "Well, you're bright, but you're not bright enough." Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff. So you're right. I think if Steve Laws was more rounded and or just stuck to the talking points, that stuck to the topic that he wants to talk about, it would go a lot better for him.
Yeah. That's something I learned when I did that debate on the Crucible. It's like, you can't let them like pull you into other things, like that whole debate that I did, I didn't want to talk about any of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what I wanted to talk about was like the effect of porn, the effect of promiscuity, like mass promiscuity. And it all ended up all about being about fucking dating and dating apps.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So yeah, like, don't let don't let somebody define the parameters of the debate in something, you know, in an area that you are not comfortable with, but also don't let them like inside of the debate, like, you know, shift over to something else like that.
Yeah.
You gotta really prevent that kind of shit.
Yeah. And also, if you ever find yourself in that situation, admit when you don't know. Even if you can't stop yourself from saying something, admit that you're not certain about it before you say it, because you dig yourself into a hole that way.
Yeah. A lot of times I'll see people, when people try to do stuff like that in a debate, I'll see like Jim Bob or Andrew, they'll say, because it really has nothing to do with what they're talking about, they'll just be like, I'll just grant that, you know, like, but like, let's get back to what I'm talking about.
It's a good tactic.
Yeah. It's like, fine, have your stupid little W, but like, we can get back to what we're talking about here. Yeah. That stuff about Tommy Robinson was interesting because a lot of people really like Tommy Robinson. And I mean, I agree with Tommy Robinson is one of those people who he's like Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro says a lot of stuff that I don't necessarily disagree with, but on the really important issues, it's basically just like a handful of issues. I just don't agree with him at all. And I feel like his approach is, that guy, Andrew Gold, he like seemed more sympathetic to the erasure of British culture and white people in Britain, English people, than Ben Shapiro does about Americans. Ben Shapiro doesn't seem to care at all about the upholding of American culture and white people in America. And maybe that comes as a shock to some people who don't pay attention to the shit that Ben Shapiro says, but Ben Shapiro doesn't give a fuck about America. And it's pretty fucking clear when you like really pay attention to the shit that he says. He said once explicitly, I don't give a good goddamn about the browning of America or something like that. Yeah, it's because we know the only thing that Ben Shapiro really cares about is Israel. Like as long as America is a piggy bank and a defense force for Israel, then he's happy with America.
Yeah.
Anytime we start taking any kind of deviation from that, he gets all bitchy. We're not allowed to want to preserve our culture. We have to be all about preserving Israel's culture.
So that brings me to the ethno-nationalist topic, because Steve Laws tried, and we saw that in the clip we played, he tried to define nationalism based on ethnic identity. And Andrew Gold tried to define it based on cultural identity, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And this is where I kind of have my foot on both sides of the fence, and so I'm curious what you would say about this and push back on. So first of all, I want to say, I can't remember who said it. It might have been that Jared Taylor fella. He's I don't know if it was him or not, so don't hold me to that. But somebody said something like, it was Jared Taylor. He said something like people of a white Anglo-Saxon background or whatever created Western laws and societies and cultures, and we built it, and only we could have done that, right? We built it in a way that was unique to our cultural identity and our there's a lot to explain here. I guess the point I'm trying to make is I have come to the conclusion that there's more to race and genes than I used to consider. I would say, like, there was a time when I understood that, like, there's differences in IQ across racial grounds, but the idea that there would be differences in personality, differences in behavior patterns, that was something that I never really quite understood, and I would push back against. But now I think, no, there is something that you inherit genetically that's not taught to you. It's not exclusively nurture, it's nature that has to do with how you will behave, the types of values that you will gravitate towards, the types of things that you want to accomplish or spend your time doing, the values that you have. There are things about what you value that do not get taught to you, but are inborn. And this is something that I never would have thought before, but I believe today. And so when Jared Taylor says, listen, white people built Western European culture and society, and only white people could have done that. And if you could have done that, you would have, but you didn't. So there's something about more, it's deeper than nurture. There's something about nature that creates a certain output, a certain human output. It has to do with how we interact with each other. It boils down to language and how we wage war and what we value and our religious sensibilities and our personality types and all of this stuff. It's clustered into these genetic clusters, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's true when someone like Steve Law says the England should be for the English because we built it. This is our land and our people. It belongs to us. Mm-hmm. And I'm super sympathetic to that idea, especially when I hear statistics like white people are now only 11% of the world population. And, you know, in places like London, it's like 3%. Like there's places, I don't have any of the facts here, but there's places, cities in England where it's mostly brown people. Where are the English? And they're living in this infrastructure developed by the English people.
Yep. And what's happening to it?
That's another thing, man.
Like these people come here or to London or wherever the fuck. They come to this place where they are not from. They come as aliens to a host place. And it's good. It's, you know, because the people who lived there made it that way. Mm-hmm. And then they come and they take it over and they're just making everywhere like where they came from.
Yep.
And it's like, and this like goes back to what I was saying earlier about these people who would say being America means nothing, being British means nothing. It's like they think that that's fine. They think that I don't know, man. They like what it reminds me of is with this Somalian thing, with this, you know, daycare fraud.
Yeah.
You have all these liberals who are like, fraud is obviously being committed 100%. And I don't know. They just act like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, like it has nothing to do with the fact that they're Somalian in their eyes. Like, and I don't know, maybe I would say that genetically it does have nothing to do with their Somalian, but I'm really not willing to grant that. But let's just say that I am. It has something to do with the fact that they're Somalian and the fact that they wouldn't have been here to do that in the first place. You know, they would have been scamming each other in Somalia, because I do think that there's a genetic component to it, to be honest with you.
I think there is too.
I think the genetic component, it might be like you're more inclined to take advantage. They're more inclined to take advantage of people who are not like them.
100%.
Yeah.
And they're not integrate. They're not assimilating. So, you know, and this is literally the case that when Ilhan Omar goes on television, sometimes she doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
They're not assimilating. So they continue to see Americans as other. And it's far easier to do terrible things to people who are other.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Now, this brings me to the civic nationalism conversation because...
What do you like about it?
Well, okay, let me try.
Go ahead, and I'll remember. What were you going to say? Where were you going?
I'm in a unique... I feel like we're in a unique position in the United States because even though I don't believe this in the way that liberals say it today, we are a melting pot. Mm-hmm. And I do think that historically people have assimilated to American culture from all over, and they have contributed to the richness of American culture. And this is all what MSNBC is saying in defense of the Somalians. I completely understand that. But I do think some of that is true, is so long as people assimilate, and to your point, are proud to be American, who want to defend what it means to be American and our boundaries and our values, and who put their hand over their heart when we're saying the national anthem, you know, who welcome and adopt American culture. I do think those people, especially the ones that have been here for multiple generations, are as American as me, even if their name is
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Vivek Ramaswamy. Yeah, to some degree. But at the same time, I also feel very sympathetic to what we just talked about coming from Steve Laws and the idea that America might cease to be America in the way that Nick Fuentes talks about. I understand that. I feel defensive about it. And so I'm not really sure how I feel about this idea of ethno-nationalism. And I guess what I'm saying is it different in a place like England, in America, where we are such a mix of different people and the culture is such a hodgepodge? I do think that there is a common thread through this hodgepodge that welds everybody together. And up until the last 30 years of my life, people respected that, in America. In America.
So you feel like there is a common through line in the hodgepodge that draws everyone together, and up until 30 years ago, everyone kind of agreed with that.
That's how it seemed to me, yeah.
Think about it, though. Like, do you really feel that way?
I'm sure we could talk about examples that are contrary. Like talking about,
I feel like with certain people, I completely agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who came here and they came from places and they became Americans. And there's like really no doubt about it.
There are people that got off the boat and kissed the ground.
Yeah.
Didn't speak a word of English and they kissed the sand of freedom and
you
said,
ever see the picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger when he got his American citizenship? He's wearing like an American t-shirt, a hat. He's like waving flags.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I saw an interview. You probably saw it. There was some young, handsome Venezuelan guy who was some kind of commentator. I don't know. He was being interviewed, and he was talking about how the people who are defending, communism and all this stuff, like they don't know what it's like there. It's like he appreciates what it's like to be in America because he came from this terrible place. And I think people have forgotten that. Like America is a bastion and a refuge. It's like the salvation of Jesus, Kyle. It's being offered freely. As long as you follow the rules, you can come in and have this great opportunity.
I don't think he should be allowed to stay, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think I mean that completely sincerely too, because he comes like, what's going on in Venezuela. Let's say we get a bunch of people from Venezuela, like, who knows what's going on there right now. Like, it seems like maybe Venezuela might be like how Puerto Rico is, like a protectorate, and we start getting a bunch of Venezuelans over here. And then these Venezuelans who legitimately do love America, they get into power. And even though they're not changing things about like capitalism, they're not changing the free market, they're not doing any of that, they do change things that makes it more comfortable for Venezuelans to be here. And then the Venezuelans that you don't agree with feel comfortable coming here and they start changing shit.
Yeah.
I just feel like we need to be protective. We need to, being American needs to mean something. And it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but I feel like that is kind of an ethnic thing. Like we were talking, I was just talking about, Arnold Schwarzenegger. What is Arnold Schwarzenegger? He's Austrian. He's European. I feel like there's something to that, man. When I said that the Normans and the British people, they have more in common than somebody from Pakistan. There's something to that.
There is something to
there's that Indo-European language, there's something to that culture that is different, but it's not wildly different.
So here's something that's comes to my head here, and it is, I said all the stuff I just said earlier about the United States being a melting pot and benefiting from the cultures that were absorbed into American culture and all of that. But here's the thing that I'm thinking about in that regard. It's like, if these other cultures that weren't cohesive with, or at least immediately cohesive with the existing American culture, largely those that weren't Western European, let's say, if they hadn't come here, how would our American society have developed differently than it did? And would it have been better? And what are we potentially missing out on because of it? So this is a controversial take, but the reason I say this is because I keep seeing all these videos of Poland and Hungary You know what I'm talking about? All these little clips on Twitter of how beautiful the Christmas markets are in Poland, where they don't let any refugees in, and everybody's walking around, completely not afraid someone's going to steal their cell phone off the subway or grab their bag. Nobody's concerned about violence or theft.
Clean.
Everything's clean and organized, and everyone's happy.
Trains run on time.
And then I look at a place like San Francisco, and I see what it was like and the potential that it had when it first became a major city, and I see what it looks like today. And the question is, if multiculturalism were controlled to a higher degree, if we hadn't done what we did, what we chose to do in the United States, what would it be like? What might it be like? And if it might be better, what did we rob ourselves of? And it's just like human beings are adaptable. So you get used to whatever the situation is that you're in, and you just kind of think it's normal. And that's what Nick Fuentes says. He explains so well when he's like, the Chicago suburbs that I grew up in were like a Norman Rockwell story, painting or whatever. And today it's a nightmare. And I cannot say that it's not possible that there's legitimacy to that idea. And that would make me racist in the eyes of, I don't know how many people, but lots, to even suggest it.
Yeah. I mean, I sent you that video, that I Hypocrite video, and the title of the video is like, why I am a racist or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's basically where I'm at. Like, there are Black people, specifically because they're the ones that I'm around the most often, that I like. I don't dislike them because of the color of their skin. But if I had an honest conversation with them about how I really think about things, they would probably be upset, and even, I don't know. I feel like we're talking about immigration from other places in the world. Like, we're talking about Arabs, we're talking about, South Americans, Central Americans, stuff like that. But the original one was, the slave trade.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, the fact that they would consider themselves to be other makes a little bit more sense, because we obviously considered them to be other.
Yeah.
For however long the American slave trade lasted, they were very clearly other. And even after, they were other. I mean, I would say that they are still other, but they don't.
It's important to them that they're other.
Exactly. Yeah. They want to be other.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they want to have it both ways. They want to
Mm-hmm.
say, we're not other, but we also are other. It's like, you are other and you will always be other, and you need to stop. I don't know. Just like stop talking out of both sides of your mouth. Like, say what you want,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do think you're right that, I guess when you put it that way, people who do not immigrate here from Western Europe or Europe in general do not fully assimilate to American culture the way it was originally, let's say, if that means anything. Because a culture that was original here was a white European culture. And so people coming from Europe adapted to it better than those who didn't. And I feel a little bit of a rub when it comes to Black people, because in my mind, Black people were here the whole time, especially the ones that we brought over here in the slave trade. They've been part of the fabric of the United States kind of from the very beginning, right? And so I have a hard time thinking that those people are not as American as I am, or shit. A lot of those people who came over during slavery came before my family did. They've been here longer than my family. They're such an integral part of what it means to be American. When we think about, people always say this when we talk about Black people. I don't mean it in a weird way, but it's like the contribution they made to music and what American music is. It's like, wouldn't be that without Black people. So that said, I have this rub here, because I do think, and I want to say something that's going to sound bad, but I'll say it anyway. There are people that I've met in my life, Black people that I've met in my life, that I would have absolutely no problem being neighbors with, marrying my daughters off to their kids.
That's a bit much for me, but
well, there are people like Thomas Sowell and Morgan fucking Freeman that are national treasures as far as I'm concerned, but they're rare.
Yeah.
The ones that I have contact with growing up in school and in the workplace and so forth, they, to your point, take pride in being different from white America. They have their own culture, and it's hard for me to blame them for it entirely, because if somebody took me and put me on some other continent and stripped me of my culture, out of spite, I would never fully assimilate. Out of spite, you know what I mean?
Yeah, doesn't that kind of affirm what we're talking about?
Maybe it does.
Yeah, it's like that kind of assimilation, like European assimilation is one. For a German person to assimilate with a Dutch person, pretty fucking easy.
Right.
But for an African person to assimilate with in America with a bunch of European people, it's like, yeah, we can try to force them to, and we did try to force them to, and like the same thing with Native Americans, you know. But it's never going to happen. They're never going to, because it's ingrained, it's inherent. And if the more we try to, the more they're going to be like, fuck you, I'm going to eat chitlins. I'm going to fucking collard greens.
I think that's evidence that these cultural differences have a significant genetic component, because you can have Black Africans in the United States living in a Western culture for hundreds of years. And at the end of that hundreds of years, there's still a distinct culture.
Yeah.
You know? And in some ways, it looks a lot like the cultures in Africa, you know? And I'd be willing to say that because there's so many cultural groups in Africa, more genetic diversity in Africa than anywhere else. I think that if you did the research, if you really did the research, and you like took genetic sampling from populations in Africa and you corresponded that to behavioral tendencies and socioeconomic outcomes and all that stuff, I think there would be a vast scale of people who would be, let's say, more likely to assimilate, more likely to be successful in living in a Western society than others. But I do think it's strange that with Black people living in the United States for hundreds of years, never fully assimilating, and you look at cultures in Africa and you see similarities between how they are there and how they are here, even after 400 years. To me, that tells me there is something genetic. There is a genetic component to the types of civilizations that people create. It's not a matter. I guess I wonder if assimilation is possible with everyone. It doesn't seem like it is, man. It seems like 400 years is enough to assimilate if you're going to.
Yeah, you would think. That's a long time. I wonder if assimilation is more possible for some people than for other people. I mean, I'll be honest with you. White people, and this is just another case of me saying that white people are better at things than non-white people, but like, you remember, I know you're not like that big of an internet guy, but you remember PewDiePie?
I remember the name.
Yeah, he's a Swedish guy. I think one of those Nordic, I'm pretty sure Swedish. And he was the biggest streamer on YouTube for a long time. You know, made tons of money, got very famous, and then decided he didn't want to do it anymore. So him and his wife and child moved to Japan. And I bet you PewDiePie is fucking that. This is another interesting thing. I was going to say PewDiePie is Japanese, but he's not Japanese. Yep. I mean, I bet you that he has assimilated very well. I bet you he speaks Japanese. I bet you he's not doing things that are like offensive to their culture. But he's not Japanese.
True.
And I feel that way. Like, I feel like if I had a job where I had to go live in, God fucking forbid, I had to go live in like China or something like that, I would try to learn Chinese. You know, I wouldn't go over to China and try to make it America, you know?
So this is a good thing. This is a good example that I think liberals can maybe understand better. Let's just go back to your example, because Scandinavian society and Japanese society have some things in common that are unique, including this like hyper orderliness and cleanliness and things like that. So you might expect someone like PewDiePie would assimilate over there really well. What happens when a whole bunch more PewDiePies keep coming over, and suddenly Japan is 60% PewDiePies and 40% Japanese?
Well, what's interesting is Japan doesn't let that happen.
I know. But if they did, imagine 80 at some distant point in the future, 80% of the occupants of the island of Japan are Scandinavian white dudes, but they arigato and they wear the clothes and they're as Japanese as anybody culturally, but they're fucking blonde hair, blue eyed, 6-7 foot tall motherfuckers. Is there something wrong with that? I think even
if you're Japanese, I feel like you probably think so. I would think so.
Oh hell yeah, that is unacceptable, man.
It's erasure. It's
erasure, yeah.
And I don't, even if maybe I would feel more comfortable. I mean, I would love to go to Japan, so I don't necessarily feel uncomfortable going to Japan, but maybe I would feel more comfortable going to Japan if it was all a bunch of Nordic guys, maybe I would feel even more comfortable.
Yeah.
But I don't blame the Japanese people for being like, fuck that, and nobody else in the world blames anyone else in the world for feeling that way, except white people. White people, European people of European stock are the only people in the world who are not allowed to feel that way.
Yep.
So
I want to say something just for clarity. Earlier when I was talking about Jared Taylor and I was saying that he said, only white Europeans could have made white European culture. I do think that's true. But I also want to say, because this is sort of like this black-white dynamic or something, I want to say that the Chinese, since you brought them up, the Chinese uniquely could make Chinese and did make Chinese culture. White people could never have made Chinese culture.
Yeah.
And that tells you that there must be more than a nurture involved. There must be some genetic component to that. And Chinese culture had its glorious period. They have architecture that's absolutely fucking amazing. They have kung fu and shit. They have all kinds of stuff that I love that we could not have done, or we would have. So I just want to make that point because I don't want people listening to think that I'm making some sort of a white supremacist argument. I'm not making a supremacist argument of any kind. I'm saying that statement is equally true of other cultures.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I agree with you, but I would say that I am in some sense making a supremacist argument in the sense that I think that white European culture is supreme in the fact that while I can say Chinese culture could not have come from anyone but Chinese people, I don't want to live in Chinese culture.
Right.
Like I agree, it's uniquely them, and I can go visit, and I would like to go to China. Like it would be cool as hell to see a lot of stuff in China. It would be nice to go visit. I wouldn't try to Americanize China when I was over there, but I want to come home. I don't want to live in China. I don't want to go try to be Chinese because I never could, and they wouldn't accept me as Chinese. Can
you imagine being a Muslim living in China and going up to the butcher shop and telling them they can't sell pork because it's halal?
Yeah,
because they're doing that here. And in China, I don't know if it's true, I heard that they are demolishing mosques and turning them into nightclubs.
That's base.
That they consider, I don't know if this is a matter of policy or law or what, but they say that Islam is classified as a mental illness, and they are literally taking over mosques.
There's a lot of stuff about China that I like, man. There's a lot of stuff about China that I like. They just made OnlyFans illegal, from what I understand.
In China?
Yeah.
It's probably good.
I'm 100% for it. I wish we would do it here. There's a lot about like that old libertarian free market shit that I'm just not on board with anymore, man.
Man, I'm persuaded more and more. Like I still have a root of it in me that's hard to, like individualism and all that. But the more we talk and the more I see what's happening in the world, the more I realize there does need to be limits on freedom.
Yeah. The root of it, I agree. There's still like this core part of me that does feel that way. But that core part of me, what has changed in me is that, like, yes, there is that core, but you can't let that be like the guiding principle for everything.
Yeah.
Because if you do, you end up with this, what we've got going on now.
Yep, you do.
Where it's, like 50 fucking % of the women in the country are showing their butthole online,
Dude, there's no better tool for the devil ever than to give 18-year-old girls an avenue to make more money than their parents have made in their entire lives by doing the worst kind of shit that to them they're not even capable of fully understanding, like, the impact of it, and just like have at it.
Yep.
I
forget who it was. Maybe it was that Lily Phillips girl, or maybe not. I don't know. But I saw that some OnlyFans, what's the word? I don't want to say bad words. I'm trying to be nice here.
Yeah.
Some OnlyFans. Whore. That's the word that's the word I was going to say. Yeah. One of those made like $2 million more than LeBron James in 2025.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. LeBron made like 48 million and she made 50 million.
So this reminds me of like the story about like selling your soul, like the what was the one from Oh Brother Where Art Thou, where the black guy sells his soul to the devil so he can learn to play guitar real good. Remember that?
Yeah.
And it's like, what's your price, man? Because almost everybody has a price, man.
Yeah.
For selling your dignity, selling your future, selling your soul.
I feel like that used to be less true.
Yeah.
Back when people valued their souls, when people, when basically when we were more religious people, because I feel like I'm trying to act like I'm, better, I'm like holding myself up on a pedestal, but I don't feel like I do have a price. Like I had this shift in the way that I think about reality and, material and spiritual and all that stuff. And I do believe that I have a soul, and I do believe that if I could sell it, that would be a really bad idea.
Yeah.
And I just feel like we need to figure out a way to get more people to feel like that. We need to find a way to get more people to think like me.
To value something more than money. And I hate to say this, but it just like seems like appropriate thing to say, and this is anti-libertarian of me, that maybe capitalism, like making money the most important thing, we have to figure out a way around that. Like that's something capitalism encourages in some way.
Yeah. I do. I mean, I think that a lot of the market should be free. The market should be as free as possible, but making profit the ultimate goal for everything, definitely has some like negative consequences.
And this could lead us into a conversation, which is again weird, and I want to reject on the surface, is if money weren't so important because it gives you the things that you want and need. What I'm saying here, what I'm getting to here is something like the remarks Elon Musk made about the future of AI, making it such that everybody's going to be wealthy or live in a way that like wealthy people live, or this universal basic income idea. Like if earning money weren't such an important thing to have what you want and need, in some ways that potentially could solve this problem, but it creates a whole host of other problems, like the problem of motivation, So I'm just curious what you might think of that.
I think that a lot of people don't have any motivation anyways, a lot, and who knows what the reasons for that are. Maybe there are like societal, like cultural things that you could tweak that would make people have more motivation, but honestly, I don't know. I guess capitalism seems like a good thing for that. It's like, if you want to be Elon Musk, you just go work your ass off and you stand a much better chance than somebody who's not doing that, you know? But that makes me wonder if that kind of that financial monetary, if that is the most effective thing to like get people to be motivated, I don't know. I don't know what it would be, but it does seem like like I said, there are a ton of people who don't have a lot of, I don't have the most motivation in the world, like I work, I'm happy to work to like get by. But I'm just like, first of all, like just the era we're in right now, it doesn't seem like putting in a whole bunch of extra work makes a whole lot of fucking sense, to be honest with you. But yeah, I just don't know. Like what could we put in people's sights to like cause them to be more motivated?
It's a good question.
Because it's been, how old is capitalism?
I mean, it depends on how you define it, I suppose.
Hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and it has been good for innovation to a certain, like to a huge degree. But I feel like it's like stagnated in like the common person, in like the world that we're in now. There are still obviously people who are motivated to change the world, and capitalism aids them in that. Like, like you look at Elon Musk, he's obviously a very motivated person, and he wouldn't be able to do a lot of the stuff that he does if he didn't make a ton of fucking money, but like to the normal person, what can we do to bring that kind of a motivation, that motivational spirit?
Yeah, like to motivate somebody in a way that's not like competitive. I don't know if that's the right way of putting it. I was thinking about this idea of like everyone having enough money that they don't need to focus so much on making money, and they can focus on what they want. And immediately I thought of, like, selfishly, I thought of what happens to the role of men and the motivation of just men. If all the money you need to be secure and protected, which is a man's job, right? A man's job, our whole instinct is to secure a family that we can provide for and protect. And if the government, this is like the welfare argument, if the government is paying for you to have that, what is a man even going to do? Like this would cause widespread depression and suicides among men. Like, what are we even here for at that point?
Yep. It's a bunch of dangerous shit to be tweaking,
Yeah. True. We have our instincts, Kyle.
We do.
All right. I did want to, just I have something I can connect to this. One of the other things that Nick Fuentes said in that conversation with Sneeko that I find interesting, I'm not sure how to make sense of, is Nick Fuentes seems to care less about what's happening in, less about the effect that Islamic migration and Islamic influence has in the West, and more so on the influence that Jews have in the West. Steve Laws has the opposite. Well, he didn't exactly say anything about Jews, but he's living in the UK where the Muslim migration and cultural changes driven by Muslim culture is of critical importance to him. So he's way more concerned about the risk and the threats of Arabization and Muslim influence. Nick Fuentes seems to, like, he seems less concerned, maybe unconcerned about Muslims and narrowly focused on the influence of Jews. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that saying that Steve Laws didn't have any concern about Jews is like not true.
That's true.
And I think, and I have a hard time disagreeing with this, I think that Steve Laws sees the overflow of Muslim immigration into England as a consequence of Jewish involvement. And we kind of talked about that via text like last week. Maybe, you sent me that clip of that guy on the Danny Jones podcast, and it's like, I agree with Nick Fuentes that, like, I'm not that concerned with Islam in the United States. I don't, honestly. If I could snap my fingers and we deport every single Muslim in the United States, I would do it. I have zero problem with that. But I will admit that if I lived in like Dearborn, Michigan, or if I lived in Minnesota, I would probably feel a little bit more concerned about it.
Yeah.
But I don't. We have lots of Arab Muslims here.
We do, yeah.
You know, like this area where we live, there's lots of them, but it's not that much of a problem. And that I can't remember that guy's name that you sent the video of, who was on Danny Jones, but he said that Israel they have the will to deal with the problem. We don't have the will to deal with the problem. I think the reason I'm not that concerned about it is if we ever decided to have the will, we could take care of it tomorrow.
Yep.
You know, like it's not a problem. There's not a ton of them here. There's a lot of, but it just wouldn't be like, think about, Israel and how they dealt with Iran, how they dealt with Hamas, how they dealt with, I'm not a huge fan of like the carpet bombing of Gaza, but if it came down to it, it's not a problem. Whereas the influence that Israel has over the United States and the influence that you can't even say Israel, the way that Nick Fuentes says it is global Jewry.
Yeah.
Which I think rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but there's really no other way. First of all, there's nothing wrong with that description because that's how they describe themselves.
Yeah.
They have the World Jewish Congress. What the fuck else is that other than global Jewry?
Well, you have to realize that there was they just call it the diaspora, right? Jews went all over the place when they lost their country, and they lived for 1,000+ years everywhere. So they kept their identity, that was important to them, and I completely understand that. So they never assimilated. I mean, for the most part. So they considered themselves to still be a nation, and up until 1948, a nation with no home. So what do you call that? Global Jewry. What do you call that?
Yeah. Yeah, and I just think that, like I said, the effect that they have had is so much more. I don't know. It's so much more potent than in general what Islam has had in the world. Like ever since the Ottoman Empire fell and the Mongols fucked up Baghdad and made the rivers run black with the ink of all theirs. Islam, they like rattle their saber a lot, but they're lucky that we are so tolerant. They're lucky that the world is so tolerant, because at any point, if Israel is bodying them like they are, dude, if the entirety of Europe and the United States and Asia decided, all right, we're done with you fucking people.
Yeah.
They don't stand a fucking chance. The only thing that I think the best argument for supporting Israel on some aspect is that Israel has nukes. They don't, it's not an official thing, but Israel does have nukes.
Yeah, for sure.
And if we let Israel fall, then a bunch of fucking Arabs have nukes, So I think there's something to that. But honestly, I think the best to just take the nukes from fucking Israel. But
yeah,
So I'm just not that concerned about Islam, to be honest with you.
So there's been some things that I've noticed lately that have make me feel a little bit better about it, but I'll acknowledge my own anxiety. All the stuff that I'm seeing, not only in places like Dearborn, Michigan, and places like Minnesota, there was even here on the west side of town a complex. It was a couple blocks wide. They were trying to get permission to build an Islamic center there. There's already a school there, and they wanted to take this multiple block space. They wanted to turn into this big Islamic center, and I'm pretty sure they got denied, which makes me feel relieved. But the reason I'm admitting this is because I feel threatened for the first time in my life that my race and that my culture are in danger. Mm-hmm. And I feel that way about my religion as well. And I have never felt particularly like a particularly strong Christian identity. I've always considered myself a Christian. I still do, but I never attached myself to that as a part of my identity in any real significant way. And then suddenly that felt threatened for the first time ever. And in a fucking heartbeat, I felt defensive about it. And all of a sudden, it feels like a much more significant part of my identity that I feel obligated to defend and protect. So I feel this way for the first time about the threat of Christianity and a threat to white European identity. And I have plenty of good reasons to think that way. But what surprised me was how defensive I got, how quickly that happened, and how easily it made me think differently about like maybe certain liberal sensibilities that I never would have thought that I would question or do a 180 on. And it all has to do with feeling like my identity is threatened. Like I went to church. I took my family to church. I've never done that, never. I have young kids. They've never taken them to church. And I did that, but lately I've seen a lot more people debating Muslims successfully. A lot more, like I saw all these. I don't know. You've probably seen these videos. There's all these videos of people in Muslim countries that are kids that are praying. They put their prayer mats down and they're praying, and then like it's almost like a little viral video. They're doing like a normal Muslim prayer, and then they like make funny faces, or they're making a mockery of it. So I'm seeing things that make me feel like there's some resistance to it. And this brings me to a question that I wanted to ask you, or something I wanted to present to you. As much as I feel like Christianity is under threat by Islam, Islam is, in my opinion, Islam is a religion that exists to be anti-Christian. The only thing that Islam teaches that isn't mirrored in some way in the Old Testament is that Jesus isn't God. Their entire faith is built on a resistance to Christianity. But they're also the only other world religion, major world religion. You can count like the Baha'i people, but the only other major world religion that believes in Jesus, that holds some sort of a high position in their theology. And there's almost 2 billion Muslims in the world. And so my mind is starting to go from defense to offense in the sense that I wonder how ripe for the pickings 1.7 billion Muslims, especially as they are coming into the West to be evangelized. Like 2 billion Muslims that already have Jesus, hold him in high esteem, and he's central to their theology, and how easy it might be to influence them in the other way. And suddenly I'm not as concerned about being on the defense, but I'm flipping my perspective a little bit and thinking, how possible is it that we might see a resurgence of evangelism? What's the word? Where in the South they have the tents and people come out? A revival, like a revival, Yeah. And suddenly we're converting the Allahu Akbar people, as Jesse Peterson would say, to Christianity.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. I think that you don't want them to die as a Muslim. That probably sounds very supremacist and whatever, but it's the truth. If you're a Christian, it's like I don't want you to die as a Muslim because you're going to hell. Yeah. Whatever hell means, I don't necessarily really think it means the lake of fire, but whatever it is, you got a one-way ticket if you die as a Muslim. Now, just to kind of tie that back into what we've been talking about this whole time, even if they do convert to Christianity, they still have to go. Like, yeah, there's a lot of these people who say that, like, if you're Christian, you can. No, absolutely not. Like, there are Christian parts of Africa that you don't want to fucking live in,
sure.
Man.
Some of the very first Christians that are from Egypt and Syria. Do you want to live there? I don't.
Absolutely not. And I don't want America to become Christian Syria.
No.
As much as I would greatly prefer that Syria was Christian as opposed to Islamic, just because you're Christian does not mean that you get to stay. So just to like kind of tie it back into what we'd been talking about.
No, I like it.
But I do think, like if we can save some Muslims,
I
think that'd be good. I think that their societies would flourish, I think that they would be doing a lot better if they were Christian, if they weren't fucking their cousins.
I've seen so many cocky Muslims in these debates saying nasty things and genuinely hatefully towards Christians, and something in me would just be very gleeful about their children. Like, oh, we're going to outbreed you and take over, and then your children become Christians. Like, something about that just makes me gleeful.
Yeah.
There's a story from ancient Persia, from the Zoroastrian religion, which I love, by the way, and I'm actually sort of hopeful with what's going on in Iran that if the regime gets overthrown, that the Iranian people might return to the religion of their ancestors and become Zoroastrian again. I think that would be fantastic for them. It's a faith that's far more similar to Judaism and Christianity than Islam, and it's a religion of peace, truly a religion of peace. The Zoroastrian motto is good thoughts, good deeds. Oh, shit, I can't remember it.
Bunch of good stuff.
But that's what it is. It's like, that's the, anyway, there's a story in Zoroastrianism that the Bible borrowed from, and it's basically in the creation time, in the beginning, the devil and God are there. I'm just going to call it that for a Christian audience to understand. Ahura Mazda and Ahriman are there in the beginning, and Ahriman, the devil, once he notices that God exists and the things that God is creating, he immediately wants to destroy them. And so when God creates the world, Ahriman takes his chance. He goes down into the world to try to destroy what God has made. And what God does is he closes heaven above him, locks him in. So Christians have this belief that the earth is the domain of Satan, that the earth belongs to Satan. And Satan is here trying to corrupt souls for himself. And the Zoroastrian story is a little different. It's Satan comes in with the intention of destroying, and God is like, it's like the Trojan horse scenario. God is like, you took the bait, bitch, and closes heaven in so that the devil's trapped in here with us.
Yeah.
And all the good thoughts and good actions that we take are little fucking stabs at him, and he can't go anywhere. He's here forever until we are done with him. And I think that's cool. I like that twist on the story, but I also think it reminds me of this idea of Muslims coming into the West with the intention of taking it over. But bitch, you're trapped in here with us and our culture, and we're going to convert you. Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I like it.
They're right for the pickings, man, because their theology is so unsophisticated. I mean, they literally borrow stories from the Old Testament and the New Testament that they only ever heard spoken, that they never read.
Mm-hmm.
Muhammad himself couldn't read. So they have these like very high level, weird understandings of things with no details in the stories because they only ever heard it being told. They never read it. And where am I going with this?
Right for the pickings.
Oh, thank you. They call Jesus Christ. They call Jesus Christ. They say that he was born of a virgin, that God planted him into Mary. They believe all these things that lead you to believe what the Christian message is.
So you're giving up the entire argument, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. I don't know what to say about that, but yeah, just this whole time I've been thinking about that Andrew Wilson debate where he just was like harping on and on about Muslims fucking their cousins. It was brutal.
It was brutal. See, that's a perfect example of what I would have turned my nose up at Andrew for the tactic that he took in that debate.
Yeah.
If I wanted to see a respectful exchange of ideas and pushing on each other in ways that would be expanding of each other's minds and considering, like, that was not what happened. But it was impossible when Andrew took that tack. But because I agreed with him so much, I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yep. It was brutal, man. If you guys haven't watched that debate, what's that guy's name? He's got like a weird name.
It's some Star Wars name. Who knows?
Yeah, some Star Wars name. Look it up. It's Andrew Wilson debating a Muslim guy on.
Don't ever ask me to tell you a Muslim's name again. I have no fucking idea.
On whether Christianity or Islam is better for society or something like that. I can't remember. Look it up. You'll find it.
Yeah. What else you want to talk about?
Well, listen, we have like 15 minutes left. So I wanted to talk about McCarthyism.
Yeah.
Because this is
Bang it out real quick.
Well,
or we can not.
Well, I think we can take a trip down to the Dominican Republic and talk about this topic in 15 minutes. I don't think we can do it with McCarthyism. But the reason I wanted to talk about McCarthyism is because
he was right about everything.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering. Should we do it?
No. Let's save it for later.
Okay, we'll save it for later. But the point is, we did want to have another conversation with Daniel Torridon from the UK. So I'm going to try to get that scheduled soon. But one of the tacks that I wanted to take with him is like, to what degree, how far can you push this idea of indoctrination? Because he accepts so much of the indoctrination, especially when it comes from his religious background, because he grew up in a cult. I get it. But I just wonder, like, if we could start talking about something like, McCarthyism, and maybe because it was a United States phenomenon, maybe he's not going to react to it the way I think. But the indoctrination that I always received on that topic was that the Red Scare,
bad.
Exactly, the Red Scare was something that was a legitimate political concern, geopolitical concern, because it was overthrowing governments and causing war and starvation, and communism just keeps spreading, and it was like a disease. It was like a virus that we weren't sure how to put out, and it wasn't going to take over the whole world. There was panic about it. But the McCarthy era is considered to be like the Salem witch trials version. It was pushed to such an extent that people were being dragged in front of tribunals and they were innocent. And it turns out
like you can't have it both of those ways.
Right.
It's one or the other. Either communism was taking over all the time, or McCarthy, I don't know what the opposite of that would be. I'm like having a hard time having with the dichotomy. But you know what I'm saying? Either communism is dangerous or McCarthy didn't do anything wrong. It's like one or the other. I don't know. Maybe even if communism is dangerous, he could still do something wrong. But yeah, the bottom line is I think McCarthy gets a bad rap.
Well, it turns out he does. If you do any research on it, which maybe next time we can talk about it. He wrote a letter to the president at the time. I can't remember who that was now, but he wrote a letter to him explaining what the risks were. And at the time, the president was a Democrat, and it goes deep. But it turns out he said there was like 250 communist sympathizers in the government, and maybe there wasn't. But it turns out there was a shitload of them that were selling secrets to the Russians and doing shit like that. So we'll talk about that. But in the time we have left, I did want to mention something that I came across in a podcast that I couldn't fucking believe. And so I wanted to show you.
Has to do with the Dominican Republic, eh?
It has to do with the Dominican Republic. So I don't even remember what podcast it was now. It might have been Danny Jones or something, but he's talking to somebody about sex and gender and all that stuff. And he brings up this tribe called the Guevedoces. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm not going to do it justice. Where they have some weird genetic thing that's wrong with them. And what happens as a consequence is all of the children are female. All of the children are born female. And they don't develop secondary sex characteristics until puberty. And the way he described this was somebody who's born XY, who's going to be a man, is a woman until they're 12. At which point their ovaries descend into testicles, their clitoris develops into a penis, and then they become a man. Then they start getting hair and on their arms and shit like that.
So like the stuff that normally happens in the womb is happening like right at puberty.
This has something to do with a testosterone product or something in there that they're unaffected by in the womb that they're supposed to be affected by, and it doesn't actually start changing their body until the full puberty begins.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and so I had all kinds of questions, man. So let me show you. Let me get rid of this guy, and this is the one I want to show. So let me get rid of this one too. Oh, the Pope. Shit, I was going to talk about that too. All right, let's see. Share screen. All right. This is the article here that talks about it. So it says here, there's a discovery of a small community in the Dominican Republic where some males are born looking like girls. You can see the kids here. They only grow penises at puberty, has led to the development of a blockbuster drug that has hit millions of people. Let's see here. Like other Guevedoces, Johnny was brought up as a girl because he had no visible testicles or penis and what appeared to be a vagina. It is only when he approached puberty that his penis grew and testicles descended.
What happens to the vagina?
Great question, man. Does it fuse?
Closes up?
Does it fuse into a taint? I don't know. But here's the thing, man. I had all kinds of questions about this, and then we could take this in different directions. What does this have to say about the trans debate and things like that? But clearly, this is a genetic anomaly, right? It only affects one isolated tribe on an island and whatever. And but apparently, I had questions, man. Like, what kind of questions come to your mind when you find out?
How did that happen?
Yeah, for sure. My questions were more. My questions were, if their penis doesn't start growing until they're 12, do they have like a full size penis, or do they have like little baby penises? Do they have trouble getting pregnant? Like, do they?
Yeah.
Are they not?
That is one of the things that I was wondering too. Like, are they viable?
Turns out they are viable. You know what's weird, dude? They said that their semen they do have a low sperm count, so it's very difficult for them to actually get someone pregnant, but that their semen is like more viscous than normal semen.
Weird.
I'm just thinking about like lady juices and man juices, and like making some kind of a combined version of juices, be more viscous. But yeah, so apparently their penises are very often underdeveloped. They're smaller than they should be. Their sperm count's very low. It all makes sense. Like if you're like 12 years delayed with your sexual development, clearly you're not going to be a fully baked pie. When you come out at the other end, you're going to be.
Yeah. Fucked up, man.
Yeah. So I couldn't believe it, man.
I really do want to know, like, how, why, like, what is going on.
Let's see what AI says about that. Let me just share my screen here. And we will try this again.
Nice to see you, Chris. What's new?
Son of a bitch. Okay. Share. Do this again. Yes, let's proceed. Okay. All right. Let's go here. All right. What caused what we say here? All right, so I just asked, what caused the genetic disorder affecting the Guevedoces?
Microplastics, I'm calling it now.
All right, it's a single gene mutation called SRD5A2, which is responsible for the enzyme 5-alpha-reductase type 2. All right, let's see here. It converts testosterone into dihydrotestosterone, DHT, and that's the hormone that's required for male genitalia development in the womb. When the enzyme is missing, the fetus, despite having XY chromosomes, cannot make enough DHT, so the external genitalia develop along a typical female pattern. All right, because DHT is low, babies are born with female appearing or ambiguous genitalia. Ambiguous genitalia. God, what an insult. Yeah. And internally, they still have testes and male reproductive structures, but this isn't telling us what caused it.
Yeah, this AI is fucking garbage.
Disorder is autosomal recessive. A child must inherit 2 copies of it, which explains why it's rare. It doesn't say what causes it.
Well, I mean, I guess it's just a genetic. I mean, it seems like what they're saying is that it's just a freak genetic thing. But this article made me think that it was like more common. You know, that they say that it's rare, but it seems like it's more common in this community.
I'm asking them if it appears anywhere other than the Dominican Republic.
Yes.
It says yes. It's the most famous cluster, it says, but it exists in many other countries: Turkey, Papua New Guinea, China, Italy, Brazil, Egypt. There's a whole list of 44 countries. Okay. But it's highest in Turkey, 23%. What does that say? With the largest proportions from Turkey. Oh, of these people, 434 cases worldwide. Wow. Rare, but not unique, it says.
Crazy.
Cray.
I do really want to know what happens to the vagina. Like, did they just, when they develop a penis and the testicles drop out, is there still a vagina there? Is there still like a hole there?
See, these are all the questions I have, man.
It's fucking weird, man.
Oh, I'm going to ask. I'm not sharing my screen anymore. What happens to their vaginas. Okay. Let's see if AI is sophisticated enough to understand. Causes the external genital. Okay, you already told me
I
this.
think it's funny that it said, I can explain this clearly and respectfully.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't like about AI. They are not born with a fully developed vagina because the internal female reproductive tract requires XX chromosomes and ovarian hormones, which they don't have. Yeah, okay, that doesn't really tell me what happens to it. Oh, it's a shallow vaginal pouch, it says. Okay.
Not a full vaginal canal.
A urogenital sinus. What a weird way to say it. Okay, so I guess you got a little pouch. Maybe it just shrinks in it. Maybe you could just like hide. You can hide like a couple of dimes up there if you.
Where do you keep your weed? What movie was that? It wasn't an Adam Sandler movie. It was like a Rob Schneider movie or something. Anyway, yeah.
Where do you keep your weed? Okay. Well, I think that might have to do it, man. You got anything else?
No, I think we're good. We're golden.
All right. Well, we covered some important topics, very serious topics, and then we ended with a weird one.
Yeah, just for a few minutes.
You're welcome.
Why does it say?
Well, there you have it. That's one avenue explored, but infinitely more still to go. I hope you enjoyed thinking along with us. I know. It's not easy work. Thinking. It's hard and full of uncertainties, but I'm grateful for the company as we trek through this together. Here's to hoping that the juice is worth the squeeze. See what I did there? Let's find out together in the next episode.